Magnus Carlsen's only two losses in the World Blitz Championship came in round 15 and round 19. One was against Ian Nepomniachtchi and the other was against Alexei Sarana. He won the Blitz Championship and became the triple world champion. Let us still have a look at his two losses and see how the world champion got outplayed or blundered in those two games. First, let us see round 15 versus Ian Nepomniachtchi. Nepo started with e4 and we had Rue Lopez. They played a lot of Rue Lopez and Berlins in the World Championship against each other, and Magnus went for the Berlin. Nepo went for d3, bishop c5, takes, and knight d2. Bishop e6, knight b3. So we'll go through the opening moves quickly and reach the critical position. c5, knight a5. A little bit annoying move, attacking b7, queen c8, b3, castles and knight c4, knight d7 and knight g5. Takes and takes. Pawn f6. If you go to e6, the knight will get trapped there. So the knight came back to f3. Pawn f5. This was a big mistake by Magnus Carlsen. This was a positional mistake. The problem with this move is it leaves a lot of weak squares. g5 and after takes, the e4 square becomes weak. d5 is already weak and e6 again a weak square. So it's a positional blunder, this f5. Magnus pushed too much. So Nepo just took rook takes, queen e2, pawn d6, bishop b2, queen f8, and rook e1. Just bringing all the pieces in. And now Nepo goes for the rerouting of the knight to the e4 square. Knight e4, queen f7, and bishop c1. Slowly he's bringing his pieces to the king side. Knight f8 and knight g3 attacking the rook. Rook goes back. And a nice rook lift. Nepo is going for rook g4. Knight e6 and rook g4. Queen moves, knight e4. The queen is almost trapped there. Bishop g5, attacking the rook. Knight takes bishop is an option. Then the rook will take back and the game continues. The queen will go back. But Magnus played rook e8, knight g3. Queen has only one square, the g6 square. And here Nepo repeats. Magnus also repeats. He's saying he does not mind the draw. But after two-time repetition, Nepo goes for h4. He is threatening h5, trapping the queen. So forcing Magnus to take. And now takes, queen goes to e6. Knight e4, bishop e7. Rook goes back, rook f4. This was a bit unnecessary by Carlsen. There was no need for rook f4. He could have prepared it with rook f8. This changes the pawn structure again. Takes and h5. h6, queen f3. This pawn is now a target. Queen e5, queen g4. Rook f8 and rook e1. There is no threat right now because the knight is pinned. But if the rook is defended, then it will be a threat. The position is still comfortable for white. Rook f5, attacking the pawn. You can't defend the pawn. But Nepo played king f1, a move that surprised Carlsen. Because now if rook takes pawn, there is knight g3. And the rook falls. And everything becomes good for white. So you can't take the pawn. And here Magnus was down to just 4 seconds. And this move surprised him and he ran out of time. Just before he played this move, he lost on time. The position was already bad, but the world champion was too slow to react there to king f1. And that is how he lost his round 15 game against his old rival, Ian Nepomniachtchi. Now let's see his round 19 game, which was a more crucial game because the tournament was about to end and he had to not lose. But then he blundered. Sarana was white. He played d4. Magnus replied with d5 and we have queen's gambit decline. Knight c3, knight f6, takes, and bishop f4. e3, bishop f5. f3, h5. This was a mistake by Carlsen. Just like in the Nepo game, Carlsen pushed a little too much in the opening or early middle game. In the Nepo game, it was f5 that cost him the game. And here it is h5. So after playing this, the position just becomes bad. Bishop d3, takes, and knight a6. Knight e2, knight c7, e4. So Sarana just plays standard chess. He brings his pieces out and controls the center. It's a nice position for white. Knight e6, castles. Bishop e7, Magnus gets ready to castle. But then this h5 pawn looks a little bit out of place. It doesn't have a place here. And now castles, rook d1. Again, just bringing all the pieces in. Queen b6 attacking d2, but e5 attacking the knight. Knight moves, takes, and knight g3, attacking the h5 pawn. Here g6 was played by Magnus. The better move would have been just take the bishop, because the pieces on this side, the king side and the center, were a bit too well placed. They can form an attack very easily, especially after g6, sacrifices everywhere. All these things are in the air. All the pieces are aiming at the king. So it was important to remove one of those attacking pieces with knight takes. That would also have brought the queen to the defense, connecting the queen to the g6 square, which was a bit weak. But Carlsen went for g6 and now bishop h6. Carlsen's position is terrible. You can't really save the rook. If you save the rook, then queen f3. And the position is gone. You can't defend f5. If f5, you can take en passant, but you can also play knight into f5. That would be even better, or knight into h5. So Carlsen went for queen into b2, giving up the exchange. Takes. This was a right decision. And here Sarana went for rook b1. The correct option would have been just to play knight e2 and defend this pawn. This pawn was important to the sender. And this move, rook b1, gives Carlsen a chance. He could have gone for queen into d4. And that endgame was equal. Queen takes, knight takes, and then rook b7. But then bishop c5. There is enough play and very few pawns on this side. So it's difficult even to win with an exchange up. That would have been the best chance for Carlsen. But Carlsen made a wrong decision. He took on a2. By this time, they had some time on the clock, 1.5 minutes and 1 minute 50 seconds for Carlsen. Here, rook takes b7 was played. And this is a moment that Carlsen blundered. The position is terrible already because white's pieces are so active. It's an exchange up, first of all, and the pieces are still so active. But Carlsen played queen a3 here. What is the problem with queen a3? Carlsen didn't realize that after queen takes, bishop takes, rook a1, the bishop is just trapped. He tried to bring the bishop back, but there was no square. All the squares were gone. So he just resigned here when he realized that the bishop is gone. So this is how Carlsen lost the round 19 game against the young Alexei Sarana, who had a very good tournament. He defeated Carlsen, Nakamura, and Dubov in the Blitz Championship.